Conflict needs a language. Thoughts on conflict, inclusion, and public life. TIAN reads as there is an alternative and stands for five women: British Venezuelan, Saudi Arabian, Canadian Palestinian, Jewish Ukrainian, and Portuguese, figuring out the meaning of conflict and language in culture. We began with a simple proposition: conflict is not the opposite of democracy, inclusion, or creative life. Conflict is the condition that makes them possible. Farah al-Qasimi argues that many communities are not equipped to redirect conflict productively. We wanted to understand what kind of language allows disagreement to remain generative. Little Blue books were designed to circulate ideas beyond universities and specialist audiences. They were cultural technologies of public discourse, portable, accessible, argumentative. We are prototyping such a technology for a moment increasingly organized through feeds, metrics, and prediction. Language creates shared meanings and borders of inclusion. It shapes how conflict appears, who belongs, and what forms of disagreement become possible. We look at language itself. While endlessly generated, it loses meaning. We slow the reading down, creating a space between immediate reaction and algorithmic response. We examine a controversial 22-point statement published by Palantir's official account on X, derived from defensive technology company CEO Alex Karp's book, The Technological Republic. It calls for Silicon Valley to support the US military, champions AI driven warfare, and rejects modern progressive values in favor of Western civilizational dominance. The manifesto outlines the company's ideological and geopolitical platform in a series of core arguments, including hard power over soft power, according to Plantier. Democratic Democracies need hard power built on software, not cultural autonomy, to survive. This manifesto criticizes the vacant, hollow pluralism. It argues that all cultures are not equal, claiming that some are dysfunctional and regressive, while others have produced vital global advances. We are more interested in its rhetoric and use of confusing tech jargon to deliver culturally urgent messaging, and less in whether the manifesto was right or wrong per se. Through slow reading and structured debate, we tested whether language alone could sustain productive disagreement. These methods are intentionally simple. They require little technology, rely on collective attention, and create conditions in which assumptions can be challenged. Yet, our discussions reveal the paradox. Language can expose power, but it can also reproduce the terms through which power operates. At a certain point, critique begins to mimic the object it poses. The manifesto often described frustrations we recognized: institutional weaknesses, fragmentation, exhaustion. The recognition became the most uncomfortable part of the project. We were confused. For further debate, we chose Section 22 because it appeared the most confusingly reasonable. It does not reject inclusion directly. Instead, it asks inclusion into what? We organized a structured debate around pluralism, belonging, and conflict. We tested the arguments rather than dismissing them. One side argued that societies required shared narratives. The other argued that democracy depends on the ability to disagree without becoming identical. Again and again, we return to one question: what exactly is a hollow pluralism? What makes one form, plurality, meaningful and another empty? Eventually, we encountered the limit. Every critique produced another critique. Language began to reproduce the conditions it was trying to challenge. At a certain point, the debate stopped generating new possibilities. We realized we were trapped inside the same rhetorical machine. Language became obsolete. This led us toward the body. Wang Ichimoto described the body as a mechanism capable of transforming the conditions under which it exists. We looked at examples where bodies became political language, not by replacing speech, but by creating another form of collective expression and shared language. Lakoff argues that metaphors shape political thinking. We went for a different metaphor. What happens if conflict is not understood through the metaphor of war? In dance, tension remains present. Participants remain distinct. Differences does not require elimination. Conflict becomes relational rather than destructive. Our response is a prototype, not a solution, but an attempt to imagine communication where conflict remains possible while war does not. The future of inclusive public life does not depend on eliminating disagreement. It depends on creating structures capable of holding it. Thank you.